Would you look at that? It's finally here, the brand new Suunto Race S. I've had this thing for a little over a week now, and I've been testing it out every day since then. So in this video today, this is gonna be more of an initial review, my first impressions of this watch after using it for about a week. But I tell you what, I've learned a lot about this thing in the past week, and it's kind of a banger. Did I just spoil the whole review? All right, so what is the Suunto Race S? Well, as the name implies, it's a smaller version of the Suunto Race, hence the Race S. This is the original Suunto Race, which comes in at a 49mm form factor, and this is the Suunto Race S, coming in at a 45mm form factor. So as you can see, it's substantially smaller. But not only is it smaller, they also fixed a couple of things on the new Suunto Race S that I initially complained about in my review of the Suunto Race. And one more thing, it's also cheaper. The Suunto Race S comes in at a lower price point than the bigger brother in the Suunto Race. This watch comes in at a whopping $349 here in the USA, which I think is an absolutely banger price for this watch. And as we go through this video, I will explain why. And when it comes to options and, colors and stuff, they do have 7 different band color options to choose from at the time of ordering. And I gotta say, I absolutely love this band. They call it Power Orange on their website, but it's got this super cool, like speckled purple, white, semi-translucent vibe to it. And then at the bottom here, it kind of gradients into a purple look, and I just think it looks really awesome, especially on the wrist. Let's take a closer look at the hardware here. Like I said before, this watch is a 45mm form factor, which is very similar to something like the Garmin Forerunner 965 I have here. This is a couple of millimeters bigger, but it's right in line with that sort of mid-size watch, endurance watch category. The Suunto Race S also comes in at about 11mm thick, which is actually pretty thin, and on my scale, it weighs in at 60 grams, which is pretty light for a watch like this, and it's very comfortable on my wrist, in my opinion. In terms of durability, I do believe they use some kind of PVD or DLC coating on the stainless steel, and so far it does seem really rugged and robust, and I don't see it chipping or fading anywhere, but I guess time will tell on that because it's still pretty new to me. And in terms of the user interface on this watch, it's a mix of touchscreen on the front here, which we'll talk about in a minute, and it also does have 3 buttons on the right, just like the original Suunto Race here. It's almost exactly identical, just shrunken down a little bit. And you've got a up button or a top button here, you've got a bottom button or a back button, and then you've got a digital crown dial in the middle here, which is both something you can spin with your finger and also click down on it as well. Flipping the watch back over here, you will notice another common thread with the Suunto Race S, and it's that it does use the exact same USB charger as the Suunto Race and the Suunto Vertical. This simply just slaps on the back, it's magnetic, and these little contacts make contact here, and that's how you charge the watch up. I don't absolutely love this charger, but it does get the job done, and the battery life on this watch is really good, so it's a minor complaint. The Suunto Race S also gets a minor bump in terms of internal storage as compared to the base model of the Suunto Race as well, where the base model Suunto Race had 16 gigabytes of internal storage. The Suunto Race S comes with a standard 32 gigabytes of internal storage, which is quite a bit because that internal storage is not used for anything but the mapping feature on this watch. There's no like music capabilities. You can't download your Spotify library to this watch or anything like that, or even upload standard MP3 files. And of course, more on mapping and navigation in a minute. But first, we need to talk about one of the biggest hardware updates on this watch as compared to the Suunto Race and the Suunto Vertical here, and that's going to be the optical heart rate sensor on the back of the watch here. So if we take the Suunto Race and the Suunto Vertical, you can see on the left side of your screen, we've got the Race and the Vertical, and they both have the exact same optical heart rate sensor. And if you browse the reviews out there, whether that be written or here on YouTube, you're gonna find that I don't think anybody had really good luck with this optical heart rate sensor. And in my testing personally, I got some like okay results and some pretty static workouts, but for the most part, not great. Not a great optical heart rate sensor. However, the Suunto Race S here does come with a brand new optical heart rate sensor. And as you can see here, it actually does have more like light receptors, I think they call them, which does make it more accurate. And we'll talk about heart rate sensor accuracy later in this video. I don't want to spoil the whole thing yet, but it's looking pretty good. And on the topic of sensors, other than that optical heart rate sensor, you'll get everything you expect from a high-end Suunto watch like the Race or the Vertical. You've got a compass on board, a barometric altimeter or a gyroscope, an ambient light sensor for the display, along with that optical heart rate sensor as well, and the internal GPS, obviously. Essentially, it's got the same suite of sensors as the Suunto Vertical or the Suunto Race, so no difference there. Now let's talk about the display on the Suunto Race S versus the Suunto Race. As you can see, both of these watches do have beautiful AMOLED touch-enabled displays. Now the difference here is that the Suunto Race has a larger 1.4-inch AMOLED display, where the new Suunto Race S has a 1.3-inch AMOLED display. But something that is interesting is that both of these displays, even though they're different sizes, have the same amount of pixels. And it's a rather high pixel density at 466 by 466 resolution. Now, what that means in practice is that the new Suunto Race S has a higher pixel density, which makes text and everything on this watch look much sharper than the Race. Even though the Race is no slouch here, the pixel density on the new Race S is really good, and it makes text and graphics and stuff it makes it look really nice. And in terms of brightness with this display, I believe it gets up to about 1,000 nits of brightness. I don't have a spec to confirm that, but that's what it looks like in my opinion. And 1,000 nits of brightness is perfectly adequate for just about any lighting situation. The one downside to the Suunto Race S's display is that it does not feature a sapphire lens, where on the Suunto Vertical and Race here both have sapphire displays, which are super scratch resistant. I would almost call them scratch proof, even though anything can be scratched. The Race S here uses a Gorilla Glass display, which is similar to what you'd find on your smartphone, which is scratch resistant, but not quite on the same level as sapphire. This is kind of a bummer in my opinion for something with such high build quality, but I do understand the sacrifice being made for the price point. Okay, moving right along into the user interface on the Suunto Race S. No surprise here, it's basically a clone of the Suunto Vertical and the Suunto Race inside this watch. However, there is one huge update to this watch that makes a huge difference when it comes to using the user interface. And it's that it seems that they've put like a new CPU or GPU. One complaint I had on the original Suunto Race was that it was a little bit laggy. Like for example, if I swipe around the user interface here, you can see that it almost looks like my camera's frame rate's off. It like takes a second to sort of go into different widgets here. It kind of indexes through things. It's not super fluid or fast. Now, if we compare that to the new Suunto Race S and I cycle through these widgets, you can see it's a night and day difference. It's really, really fluid here, and there's almost no delay and lag. I mean, it's definitely not on the same level as something like an Apple Watch Ultra or Series 9 or something like that. There's still like a little hesitation here and there, but for the most part, there's really no issues using this watch. The new Suunto Race S has really come a long way when it comes to overall responsiveness. Now, because the new Race S is so similar, I'm not going to go through every single widget item and explain what they do, because you probably already know that if you've watched my review or any review of the Suunto Race. When it comes to software features on the Suunto Race S, there have been a whole bunch of tweaks within the user interface. For example, there's a new climb guidance feature, which is similar to Garmin's Climb Pro, that'll sort of break down all of your climbs on a given route that you're executing to let you know how much more climbing you have left on your activity. The new Suunto Race S also comes with these new watch faces that are fully customizable. You can actually swap out some of the complications here to show different kinds of data. Throughout the entire user interface of this watch, I've noticed like little tweaks here and there that just make the overall experience feel a little bit more polished as compared to the Suunto Vertical and Race. With all that being said, don't upgrade your watch just because of these software features, because it seems like all of this new stuff is going to trickle down to the other Suunto watches as well, and it's only a matter of time before they're all the same. Moving right along to mapping and navigation on the new Suunto Race S. Again, exactly the same as the Suunto Race and the Suunto Vertical, even though there's been some tweaks like turn-by-turn navigation and the zoom levels changed. It's largely the same. You can create a course within the Suunto app. You can sync that course over to your your watch, and you can get turn-by-turn directions to execute that course in real time, along with having a full base map on the watch using the internal storage, so you don't need to have a cellular connection to see the map. It's all right there on your wrist, which is awesome. However, there is one huge update to mapping and navigation on the Suunto Race S, and again, that's because of that new CPU or GPU or whatever magic they did to reduce the lag in the user interface. It's also present in the mapping and navigation. On the older Suunto Race, when you move around the map tiles of the screens when you're navigating, there is quite a bit of lag to like generate the imagery of the map. On the new Suunto Race S, there's like no lag at all. The map tiles generate almost instantaneously. You can swipe around the screen with your finger, you can zoom in and zoom out. And throughout that whole process, there's really no lag. It feels a lot like you're kind of scrolling around Google Maps on your smartphone, but just on your watch. And that is a welcome surprise. It makes the maps just a whole lot more usable on this watch. Okay, let's move right along into battery life on this watch. So Suunto advertises that you can get up to 9 days of use with the Suunto Race S using standard settings. So that means the always on display is turned off. You're not recording any activities or anything like that. In my testing so far, again, I haven't had it very long. I'd say 9 days is a little bit of a stretch. I think it's more like 7 days maybe if you're not recording activities and you're just using it as a smartwatch on your wrist. But more importantly, when it comes to GPS modes, when you're recording an activity and how long you can be out there for with this watch, it's quite impressive. So this watch is multi-band enabled, which is kind of the gold standard when it comes to GPS accuracy. However, that multi-band mode is the most power hungry. So you should really only use that if you need to. If you're in like a slot canyon, you're around skyscrapers in a big city or something like that, that's when you'll want to get the best accuracy in the performance mode on this watch. However, even in multi-band mode on the Suunto Race S, you're getting really good battery life of up to 30 hours of use on a single charge. If you drop down into standard single band with all systems mode, that's going to give you 40 hours of use and still really good accuracy. Pretty much good enough for anybody to run like a 100-mile ultramarathon. With that said, keep in mind that those numbers are only if you're only recording an activity. If you're out on a run and you're doing nothing else. If you decide to use the navigation features on this watch, that does take a pretty big hit in battery life. Okay, now that we've talked about GPS modes and battery life, let's talk about GPS accuracy on the Suunto Race S. And no surprise here, it's top notch. It's really good. So if you go back and watch my videos on the Suunto Race or the Suunto Vertical, you'll find that I gave high praise to these watches when it comes to GPS accuracy. For whatever reason, their intended designs on these watches are quite good, which leads to stellar GPS accuracy. And in my testing so far, these are some of the best on the market when it comes to accuracy. And now with the Suunto Race S, it joins them in having really good GPS accuracy. Again, I've only had this watch for a couple of weeks now, but in my testing so far with a bunch of different runs, I'm seeing really solid performance in just about all the modes except for the power saver modes. Even in like standard single band mode, I'm getting solid performance. But more importantly, let's talk about that heart rate sensor on the back of the Suunto Race S, because like I said, it has been updated as compared to the original Suunto Race, which is a good thing because I didn't get good performance out of this one. With this one, however, I'm getting really solid results. Again, I haven't had the watch for a super long time here, but I have been comparing it against ECG heart rate sensors on my chest. Now, it's not perfect. There are some deviations here and there. There's some spikes and drops, but not outside the ordinary for an optical heart rate sensor. And I'd say if you're just somebody buying a watch and not comparing your watch to a bunch of different sensors out there, there's a huge improvement here, and it's probably gonna be something you can rely on and not have to worry about. After all that brings us to the final thoughts and conclusions about the new Suunto Race S. I'm just gonna say it. This watch at $350 is an absolute banger of a watch. The build quality is out of this world for that price point. And if you're in the market for sort of a do-it-all, affordable, high build quality, high-end feeling sport watch with tons of features, great GPS accuracy, good heart rate sensor accuracy, full offline mapping and navigation, tons of training features and wellness tools, a pretty solid app on your phone, this should be right at the top of your list at watches to look at. I think the new Suunto Race S is really going to challenge brands like Garmin, Polar, and Coros with a competitive price point at $350. At this price, you can't get anywhere near the features or build quality of this watch from a brand like Garmin. For example, if we look at Garmin watches, the Garmin Forerunner 265 I have here is completely made out of plastic and lacks maps. And this watch comes in at $399. To be fair though, the 265 does have offline music support from things like Spotify and iHeartRadio and Amazon, things like that. That's kind of like what bigger companies can do. But what I'm saying here is, like, if we're just looking at training and wellness tools, Suunto Race S here has a lot going for it with premium build quality. But now that I've praised this watch with high regard, what could be better about it? Because it's not all puppy dogs and rainbows. That's a weird saying. There's a few things missing from the Suunto Race S that could make it a lot better, and hopefully they can watch this video and implement it next time. The first thing is the internal storage. I get that they don't want to get into the music thing, but every smartwatch out there can store music in some capacity. Even Coros watches allow you to store MP3s on their watches. It's not ideal because it's MP3s, but the capability is there. It'd be nice to see Suunto join the club and have internal music storage, because you do have 32 gigabytes here, you just can't use it for anything but maps. Another thing I'd like to see more companies do is implement speakers and microphones on their watches. For example, even Garmin isn't doing this, and I think it's an opportunity for a company like Suunto to differentiate themselves. Have an endurance watch that's built ruggedly, but also can take and make phone calls remotely from your phone, which I think is pretty useful, and a lot of people out there seem to like that as well. And jumping back to mapping and navigation, I would love to see Suunto have routable maps with labels on board, so you could see trail names and road names and waterways and points of interest, even like internal points of interest saved to the map and able to route on the fly would be really nice to see as well. And if they could work on those features, honestly, I think they're doable. They'd be right up there competing against the big boys like Garmin at a fraction of the price. And I would personally love to see that. But that's really it for my quick take on the Suunto Race S and what I think about it so far after using it for about 2 weeks. I like this watch quite a bit. I'm gonna recommend it if you're in the market at $350 and you're not already bought into an ecosystem like Apple or Garmin and you have all your historical data in there. That's really the challenge to switching platforms. If you're in a situation where you're starting fresh, the Suunto Race S is a great option. And if you're coming from the Suunto ecosystem with an older watch like the 9 Peak or the Barrow, whatever other watch, again, this is a great upgrade path forward for an affordable price, a high build quality watch, and I pretty much dig it. Okay, friends, that's really it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it and you're still watching, please consider going down and hitting the like button, subscribing down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. Check out the links in the description down below where you can go and purchase a Suunto Race S, a Vertical, or a Race. I'll have links for all three of these. Those are affiliate links. They help support this channel, but they cost nothing extra to you. And while you're down there checking out the product links, also check out my personal links over to my podcast that I try to do on a regular basis, talking about these things, my social media accounts like my Instagram account or my Threads account. Subscribe over there as well. And check out my website where you can buy some sweet Chase the Summit swag like this t-shirt I'm wearing here. You like that? That's actually me right there. All right, that's it. This got long. I'm sorry about that. I'll see you next time. Bye.